make a suggestion. An email that I got from Mr. Redway earlier today. Apparently our proposed joint meeting on the 14th of November with the planning board is not going to work.
Well, I haven't talked to the chairman yet whether he wants to flip it or anything or not, but we do have a public hearing that we do have to hold. And I'm not gonna be here. So, you guys know, whether the planning board, I think the planning board is functional enough. If you wanted to do it, you could. But they may have a public hearing and a decision that will make that.
Okay, because you had proposed the date of November 7th, but I know that that's not a date that's going to work, because that's Historical Society on the 7th and the 21st, and then Thanksgiving is the 28th. So the 14th is kind of the only open day, unless we were to be able to have a joint meeting on a day of the week that was not normal for either group, like maybe a Monday that the selectmen are meeting.
I didn't get my last email, right?
No, apparently I did.
Okay, good. Because I suggested, what the heck, why doesn't the AHS just change its meeting date for that?
That's a nice suggestion, and it will work. But thank you for the thought.
Sure.
Those schedules have been fixed for decades.
Well, it is a historical society. Thank you for that.
Attended meeting. Traitor.
Okay, well then, the only other thing would be the Wednesday. So we could have 3 meetings in that 1 week.
That sounds like a good time.
Tuesday, and we have an EDC on Tuesday, right?
The 5th. Thursday, you have planning board?
Not now.
Well, but that's the 7th.
Right.
The 7th is Thursday, so Wednesday would be the
So you're
6th.
looking at the
Wednesday
6th.
would be the 6th. How's that work with everybody here?
I prefer that than the following week, because the following week we have a selectmen's meeting and planning board meeting. I prefer the 6th and 13th.
Then all I gotta do is get the planning board to show up.
In short notice.
That's true, because you don't have a meeting between now and then.
No, actually, they were gonna look at the 7th to do a number of different things. There wasn't gonna be an application, but they were gonna do review on the 7th. But we moved to the 6th and do this. And, that'd be better.
The
So
14th,
I will check with the planning board.
the 14th though is just a public hearing for Du Bois, and then they're gonna review that, and then
Then, leave them to their own devices.
that should be pretty quick.
It'll be short.
So do we want to stick with the 14th then?
I won't.
Well, I know you will.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's the,
That's right.
so the 6th.
You can say the 14th if you want. And it's just I won't be there. If you need my coordination.
Yeah, I think it's probably, especially for the first meeting, probably not a good idea to guide the meshing of the groups, so to speak. Or run screaming from the middle, whichever way. it
Get
goes.
into your corner. Yeah, I guess what I should do is talk to the chairman and see if the 6th, we do a poll, and see if there would be consent to the 6th instead of the 7th, so we can have a joint meeting.
Okay, can I make a counter proposal in case that falls through?
Sure.
What if there's a select meeting on, what, 2nd and 4th Mondays?
To do the 11th and the.
What if we shot?
Not the 11th, the 12th.
Because I'm not for work.
What about the 3rd Monday? Would be, what, the 19th, the 18th?
18th.
Okay,
As an
as a counter
alternative.
proposal.
Yeah, well, as an alternative, if the 6th doesn't work.
Tom doesn't need to do anything on Monday except go to meetings. I will make that, jeez, I'm not even doing it. I will make that proposal. In fact, I might do it right now while we're sitting here. I do have one.
Okay, so as a result of that discussion, we've just taken care of item 6. So now I will entertain approval of the agenda kind of motion. The reason I did that was, depending depending upon when that meeting was, that would determine how we proceed with our discussion tonight. That was why we asked for
6 or 18.
6 or 18 is what time.
So it's definitely not the 14th.
Definitely not the 14th.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. We have two sets of minutes, 24th of September and the 8th of October. So I propose we take them one at a time.
Would you like to add that, maybe add as many members of the nation and give a lot of comments on media, but I'm missing on
You missing on that one?
Sounds like we're on the 8th, on the 24th, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
You recorded it here, too, so that should.
that.
That's
Yeah,
it.
obviously.
Proof of your attendance.
Okay.
And the only problem I had is we're still working on spelling champagne on the second page. And we're M3, the first paragraph.
I believe there was
No,
Video,
you
but I
weren't
might have
here
got my
you weren't here
videos
on the
mixed up.
24th, but you missed the 8th, I think.
Yeah, you were there. When we pulled the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody who's here tonight, would you raise your hand, please?
Short-term.
Check.
Okay.
I make a motion we approve as amended. We double check to see if similar. I'm looking to see if it's any quotes from her.
No, the 24th, actually.
You were in Pennsylvania.
I was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, okay.
We need to strike some old, we have to make sure it's in.
So I have a motion.
But that doesn't necessarily mean anything to John today. You were in Pennsylvania.
Well, that's true. I was, but I'm not now. Well, we have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second before this entire meeting
Second.
deteriorates one at a time? And all those in favor? Okay. And then we have minutes of October 8th, which I'm sure some of us remember.
The spelling of my name, I'm at Van Elfeld.
I'm sorry?
The one else.
One
What else?
Well, of course you are.
You had it right all the time before.
I don't know what happened.
Your key stuck.
Sometimes you just extra consonants and you need to get rid of them.
Blame it on the spell check.
That's actually Kathy's line.
So if you would get the L out of there, please.
I'll get the L out of there right now.
Any other constructive and important comments? If not, I'll take a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Let me just thank the Secretary Pro Tem for portraying at least my comments as being much more articulate than I remember the late.
Well, I kind of felt the same way.
This is how you get raises. It's like congressional records.
No.
Okay, under old business, we have the language we had discussed about mixed use districts 1 through 5. And I sent out an email to all of you with the best I could do in terms of what we had discussed, what I had recorded and recalled. And that's the stuff that's in italics underlined. I didn't make a ton of copies, but if somebody doesn't have a printed copy of that, I think I made 5. If you will. Well, that's what I think anybody needs, I think.
I can use one, just a doodle on.
Are they going to be
One easy.
ready? Show of hands, who needs a copy?
This is the revised.
I have, well, I know you don't have the one from the 24th, you weren't here, so. And so,
Not the 29th, though.
okay, well, all right, the 24th was the preceding issue. And if we end up being one short, I have 2 more copies of that one, which are basically the same, except, you know, odds and ends.
Just the one, the 924.13.
That would be the one. But the 1029 is the one we're taking, okay.
This was,
I have the 1029. He
Yeah,
said, she
I
sent
filled it
an
out,
email.
good to go.
You want this copy?
You want to copy 1029?
I have.
Well, no, I didn't, that was tonight's week, don't confuse me, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it was about a week.
Because I think I sent it out the same day that we finalized the agenda. Okay, under the general description of mixed-use districts, we had agreed that that paragraph at the end needed to have a statement about existing businesses continuing to be able to do what they can do. And Tad said he had language for that, which is why I just said dot, 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 because I figured we should pick up the language.
that's the
Okay.
first page.
So you're still all set with how to phrase that?
Yes, I was supposed to provide that phrasing, is that?
Well, at some point, I'm sure we will.
Okay,
Before the joint meeting with the planning board.
probably be advisable.
And
1023 at 8:08 hours.
thank you so much. Glad someone's watching. In M1, we decided just to specify what medium scale meant. That was the addition of the 20,000 square foot reference. And under also M1, first page development standards, we had a sentence where the pedestrian-friendly atmosphere should be an integral part of the approach to development. Before we leave that paragraph, I would like to suggest that we get rid of the phrase village life. Because we're kind of implying that that's what it has to be with the general description without using the phrase village life.
Let's not start that one.
Well, I think it's an unnecessary description. I think we can certainly explain our way out of an uproar, but,
I will support your decision.
any other?
What's your comment again?
On the first page under M1, under development standards, that first sentence reads, development standards for this district will create incentives for small to medium scale village-like development. And I'm suggesting just strike the phrase village-like.
What is small to medium scale development?
Well, then when you get down to site design standards, will encourage development with buildings located closer to the street, parking to the side or rear, access from side streets, and that sort of pushes the village-like approach without using the term.
And why do we want to eliminate that?
There's a history. The word village, and I'm tired of that track actually of everybody running away from it.
Yeah.
The word village has got some stigma attached to it because they tried to develop a village districts,
Village center.
center,
Village center, yeah.
and it just blew up, and now this word village has got this.
And I don't think that overall townspeople were opposed to
No.
the village center as it was when we were in business.
But we don't want to start a vocabulary rebellion when it's really not the problem with the concept. And that was basically where
Leave it to the planning board, because we've already gone through this bloody battle around, it's been like a little round top for the
Yeah.
last 6 months. We had a compromise, use of language which excludes the word village.
Is there anything else you want to substitute?
Well, that's why we have downtown business district, because that was the closest we could come to.
Yeah, I think downtown to me sounds more city-like than.
It is more urban, it's getting closest central business district, CBD.
See, the village to me just isn't just too open to interpretation, is what the village is supposed to look like. You know,
That's
one
what the
person's
plan-
idea of what a village looks like and what another
But
person's
that's the
idea
planning
of what
board
a village looks
responsibility to develop those standards.
That's right.
Right.
It's not, yeah, it seems
So-
like it's better if we leave it out of here,
like. Right, and
because
just let
we're
them,
certainly saying things pedestrian friendly, close to the street, side parking. I mean, why put loaded words in there if that's a possibility, because it doesn't,
I don't think it's needed.
Well, for
it's
me,
needed, right?
I think it's time that people get over this stupid thing about a village and put it, you know, I mean, to me, when you say village-like, and listen to the planning board, when you say village-like, it helps me understand exactly what we're trying to do, that's all. Not a village center, it's not a, you know, we want it to make it look like a little village, we want to bring things closer, and, you know, for me, it's, I think we should stay, but, you know, and it's time to get over this and move forward, and it's gonna be up to us to portray it.
But if you
What it
look
is.
at the distance of where that the downtown business district addresses, I mean, to me, it's not, we're not saying, we're not looking at a center cluster that most people would think is the word village. We're saying that any, along that whole corridor, any development that happens should be pedestrian friendly, should, you know, have side parking or side access, if another business develops beside it, they should try and use the same access road or something like that. And I think we don't need that word village in there to.
Doesn't that word
It
conjure
doesn't.
more than that?
The word village conjures a lot more than that.
Than that,
Right.
and just
You know, I don't think.
close buildings, close to the road,
Right.
that means a lot more to me. It's
Right.
just design standards, which it should be, what the building should look like. You have a lot of metal buildings standing one
Yeah.
next, but that's not village like, it's not what's contemplated here. I think we need something more than just what's recited here. If in fact that's what.
I
this is
hadn't
supposed
thought
to
of
be.
it this way, but Simone's comment about downtown business district, if that's what we're really going to end up calling it, that says something different than village-like.
It does.
And based upon everything I heard in the description, that's really what we're trying to create, is a downtown business district. And considering some of the existing businesses that are there, they're not village-like, they're downtown business district. So I'm inclined to agree with, you know, taking it out, because it's almost contradictory, now that I think about it in terms of that word downtown business, or phrase downtown business district. And yeah, almost a different things, yeah. So, I mean, we need to pick one. And the planning board can certainly create their standards in such a way that the buildings look villagey.
But do they need to?
Well, that's a whole different discussion.
They need to, if it says that.
Well,
And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like it there. And that is because if a business wants to come in and put in a modern, like, looking building to bring a business into town, do I really want to tell them no because it doesn't look like a little village building? You know, we go right back to the R4 with the New England architectural, where we wanted to make all the houses have New England architecture.
And see,
I don't think you can limit your
See, I don't-
businesses to a certain look of the
I
building.
don't see a problem with it limiting businesses to a certain look, because I keep thinking of like, when you go downtown Saco, it's very villagey, you know, to a certain extent. It is a downtown, to me that's a downtown. But it's a more of a New England downtown, so you get Most Holy Trinity's new church, and I think that is the ugliest building in the downtown Saco area, because it doesn't blend at all with their other
So
historic
it's
fronts.
important to know what aesthetics are important here.
It's a
Just
modern
like
building.
pedestrian friendly, I define that. I don't understand what pedestrian friendly means, really. There's no definition to that here. It doesn't say to me in a concrete way what that means.
It does to me. It does to a
So,
design
how is that
professional.
defined?
It speaks real loudly to a design professional. It doesn't speak loudly to a citizen.
Right.
Pedestrian
see,
friendly
yeah.
basically means very enclosed space, and sidewalks, slow traffic, street trees,
So we don't
park
want to say that?
benches.
Define it?
Street furniture,
But see,
thank you.
like,
Street furniture, it's a village setting, that's what pedestrian friendly means.
See, now, when I say
Unless we go like
pedestrian
straight
friendly,
corners.
I think of like North Conway, when you have the shops in North Conway, you get out, you park, and all the shops are to the back, all clustered together, and you walk from one shop to the other. The parking lot is in one spot, but the shops are all with little sidewalks and so you just go from little shop to little shop, and that to me is pedestrian friendly. you have a central parking area and, I'm listening to quite a bit
Good example of non-pedestrian friendly is crossing.
They touted that, you read the articles in the paper, they touted that all along as being pedestrian friendly, and that is the most,
Yeah, you walk from one place to the other, there's no
Exactly.
sidewalk.
That's what I'm talking about.
So something got crossed up between
There are
pedestrian
7 or
friendly.
8 businesses next to one
Yeah.
another without
That's what
pedestrian.
I'm concerned.
From Target to the bookstore, they're pedestrian friendly, it's all of the building. I mean, because I think if we look at from where, this goes up as far as beyond Camp.
Yeah, what's the northern limit of this district?
Shows on,
What?
Which is beyond the log cabin.
it's before Fritz's.
Okay, so from Fritz's,
It's not
And
from
down to
Fritz's,
the
it's
bridge,
just before.
that's the whole business district. So I think, that means if somebody new comes in there, how can we say, you can't build a building that looks like Arundel Ford? We're not saying that, we're just saying, if you build a building, whatever you put in there, somehow the planning board is gonna come up with some definition around it. We're not gonna create the 2 blocks of downtown Saco in Arundel, not in this day and age. That's just not even.
But I guess the question would be, do you want a VIP, like the VIP here, or do you want a Rite Aid like they have in Kimball?
But we have a VIP, so we've already got some
No, but
standards of what people
design.
can do.
We're talking about the image, the
Right, but
design.
I think you can still do some type of design standard without dictating that it has to be a village. Because you could have a really nice looking business that doesn't have a village look, and it might still fit in.
Well,
Yeah, I
it
wanna
fits in,
tell
decide
Which
which one
fits
to
in,
look at.
wouldn't that make it village-like? It's in the village.
Not necessarily.
If it's in the downtown business area, see, that's what I think that's what this we're talking about, is a corridor that is a downtown business area. We are not, how do you take that 4 miles or 5 miles of road and create a village? You're not, in my definition of a village, that ain't ever gonna be a village. There may be at some point some connecting sidewalks between some of those between some of the businesses, because more businesses are in there. But I don't, how do you realistically call that whole stretch of road a
We're
village?
not talking about 4 or 5 miles of road. We're talking about probably less than a mile from Searles Lane down to the bridge. We're not talking the whole stretch of road.
But we're talking this M1 covers that whole distance from Fritz to the bridge.
That's not 4 or 5 miles. It's about 4 or 5 miles from Kennebunk.
Well, whatever the distance is.
It's probably less than a mile.
It's not a distance that most people would think about walking from the bridge to Fritz's. Let's just put it that way. Unless there were a hell of a lot more businesses in there.
That's the objective, isn't it?
Yes, right. So to say that they've got to be clustered in some certain way, I don't know, I just think it doesn't help us draw businesses in there.
Well, as I tell the planning board, very honestly, we've had this situation the way it is now for 100 years. And Route 1 isn't booming, is it? Route 1 is actually a collection, a hodgepodge of different kinds of businesses. There's no character. People don't know they're coming into a road. There's no desire for businesses that are looking for a good place to do business, a good environment. There's no desire to do that in Arundel. We've seen all this proliferation of banks in Kennebunk. There's no difference between what's on that side of the river and what's on our side of the river. It's just an identity. We don't have an identity. And what we're trying to do in this is create a distinct identity. And one of the reasons why we're trying to do that is because what we're doing now isn't working. It hasn't worked for years and years. And so if we're really serious about doing some economic development, really trying to make Arundel be something, really attract business, one of the things you've got to do, just like you do with any kind of business development, say a mall or something, is you've got to create image. And so what we're trying to do is create an image. We're not dictating an image. not dictating you've got to all look like Kennebunkport, but there are some standards that design standards that are supposed to provide some level of confidence for a business investor to know that if I make a nice building, if I do something like VIP, which is not, it's not a traditional New England building, that's a 10,000 square foot box store with gables on it, basically. But if you do something nice like that and you put the money into it, that somebody's not going to come along and put in a junkyard next to it, or put in, no offense to storage units, but a typical storage unit right next to it. And so what we're trying to do is create that confidence for business owners to know that they can make investments and know that they'll pay off and won't be disrupted by the neighbors, which is the whole purpose of zoning in the first place, is to secure and to preserve property values. So the question for the town really is going to boil down to this. Do we want that kind of downtown, or do we want to continue the process we're using right now? Because certainly, the planning board had to make that decision. Do we just keep doing what we want to do now, or shall we try to go from image? After a lot of debate and soul searching and arguing and 6 months of beating each other up and beating themselves up, we came to the conclusion, let's go this way. Let's try to create a business district. Whether we call it a village or whether we call it a downtown, it's actually more of a village from the standpoint of the design standards that come up with, or I would say the lot frontages and so forth. You're not going to get a business district, i.e. like a Biddeford business district or a Freeport business district or Berwick, South Berwick, unless we got sewer.
So have we changed this? Have we changed this HC to disallow self-storage facilities?
Yeah. Yeah, we're proposing there in the proposed ordinance stuff that I gave you. Self-storage units are not specifically allowed. They're in the VI district, which is everything from Searles Lane north. That's where they are. And that's, frankly speaking, with the exception of Atlantic Storage, that's where they are.
Will the inclusion of the two words village-like in the comprehensive plan send the message to all of these potential businesses that this is going to be a place to come and play business? I mean, is that the end all be all?
No, what's going to tell them that is going to be the zoning.
Okay.
So let's just get rid of village-like and just put business.
Yeah, put it downtown district, put it
They will create incentives for small to medium scale business development. And then the rest of it kind of tells you what you want. Right? I mean, I like to keep village-like in there, but
Is there another word that we can use besides that?
We're struggling.
Well, I guess my other question listening to the discussion was, I'd be willing to bet if we gave everybody a piece of paper and said, okay, define village-like. We have, in close definitions.
that's no different than saying define rural. What rural character?
Exactly.
This is where I have.
And that becomes one of those nebulous things. Are we really saying anything by saying
You
it?
want to look at the,
Well,
you want to
If
look
we're all
at the
different
one district.
interpretation.
It should be
You
in
said
there.
the same thing about
Is it not in there?
downtown area.
None of
You
them.
know, you ask everybody to define the downtown area.
Is it big downtown?
Some all might describe Saco, some
Exactly.
might describe Old Orchard
There we
Beach,
go.
and somebody else might describe
Downtown
downtown
business
Philly.
district.
There's nothing similar about any of it.
That's right. Well, I guess the only similarity is that
Uses are always in the
downtown is
first, very first
very
page.
generic for the concentration of businesses within a small community. Village-like, you start getting a mental picture of, thank you, what the buildings look like, the architecture. Yeah, so I mean, could we have these Swiss Alps village-like approach? Or we can have, it could look like many things. Downtown is, to me at least, a much more generic statement. If you want to find all the little shops and businesses in the Arundel, you go downtown. That's where they are.
See, I pictured downtown like Biddeford, tall blocks stacked up side by side, and you walk on the sidewalk.
But you're describing architecture, not a location.
And that's why, to me, a downtown is more of like bigger buildings that close together. Village, like, to me, is more, you know,
More rural.
right?
See, if you go to
More
some downtowns
artistically.
in Maine, then buildings aren't all
Pleasing,
Freeport comes to mind.
yeah.
Freeport does have side setbacks, but it is very intensely, it is intense development. But there are setbacks between buildings, and there are only a few buildings that are connected, that we have zero lot, coal mines, there's several others. And the new ones.
That's not a village.
Right, it isn't a village.
But
Well, it's a village, some people would might consider it to be a village if it served the local people. It does not.
But see, I don't picture that
That's what
when you talk about Freeport, I don't consider it downtown, as much as I do, like certain streets, like when you go through, I don't know if it be, not so much Rockport, but some of these cities, like, that you have a straight downtown with buildings side by side. We have a lot of little towns that are like that you go through. You're going through the downtown, it might be just a short street and buildings are all close together, but it's downtown, as opposed to village, I think more like Goodman's Mills. The buildings are kind of clustered, but they're not side by side like
They're
the
around the
downtown.
square, or they're around, to me,
Yeah.
a village means they're around,
Each
there's a
other.
park, or there's
Yeah.
a center, and then there's the village.
That's my
That's why I'm
concept.
saying that, to me, like, because of the stretch of road, that's,
Yeah, it's not gonna look like
it's not
that.
gonna look like that town joint. Some people would say,
Oh,
well,
good
we
Lord.
would build the church, the school, the
We
library.
That
didn't
causes
put
everybody
any,
to
we didn't
felt.
put any banks, that's why we don't need banks, we didn't put any.
Should be banks, financial institutions.
I think that it seems like from what you said, that the planning board has already started to come up with some more definition around what they're seeing being done. So if we say small to medium scale business development, we're giving an outline for them to then build off from, and that's really what this is about, is creating that outline for them. Is that not correct?
Well, as Don has pointed out, we're doing kind of backwards.
I know that, but
But, if you look at, if you want to see what they've done, it's in the back.
Well, actually, I'm just going to read that introductory paragraph.
Yeah,
That's why I would,
I think that
And
they
there's no
know.
banks in any of these.
Okay, the downtown business district, maybe you're
It's
gonna
probably
read it.
right.
The downtown business district one encourages the development of businesses,
Banks are actually office
I should say businesses and services along the southern Route 1 corridor to provide for the needs of local citizens, visitors, and tourists in a compact environment that will serve as a Rundle's key phrase here, central business district and service center. To meet the objectives of the 2007 comprehensive plan, DB1 district will promote building, landscaping, and sign design that creates a memorable and intimate small town setting while providing sizable building floor areas, visibility, and adequate parking to sustain viable business ventures. So, what we need to make a more generic statement than that, but that makes it look like that was written after what we wrote. Okay, I'm gonna pull a rabbit out of my hat. But that phrase, central business district and service center, I think that needs to be the focus of our statement. But even the planning board doesn't specify village line.
No.
But I like the memorable and intimate small town setting.
That's how we got around it. That was the compromise.
I like
Instead of
that.
village.
well, words that we would maybe want to pull out of that would be the central business district and service for small to medium scale.
Development, promoting,
Promoting.
or creating a central
Central
business.
business district and service center.
So development standards for this district will create incentives for small to medium scale development, creating a central business district and service center.
Then that's
Okay, creating in there twice.
will create.
Let's get business and commercial services, question.
Provide. Professional
Right. Yeah.
The definitions, which I did not give you the section 3 definitions, is what we're still hacking at.
Providing
Banks are
incentives
listed as
for
professional.
Oh, I would change
Oh, we have one.
I didn't say create, I would change the first grade to provide.
Providing, yes, okay.
And then use. immediately
Well, I can provide you with their definitions.
Yep.
The new grade is the first
I'll
grade.
be happy to provide. It should, I'll get the definitions.
One meeting, please.
And we're thinking also, I'm thinking about habits, so many people are used to the chart. I'm thinking about opening a chart.
Yeah.
They're speaking of
The whole idea.
You guys wanna go in the other
As we
room?
talked about, you take out this one little section.
All right, so we're gonna borrow the language from,
Okay, the sentence on the
Thank
table
you.
until changed. Development standards for this district will provide incentives for small to medium scale development, creating a central business district and service center.
Do you want to stay that way, or do you think it should be? Because we're,
Which is intended to,
Oh,
I don't like should, I never like should.
well, should's not in there.
Well, Dan's proposal was should.
Oh,
using the act of creating is a more active way to write the phrase.
how about thus creating?
repeat that again.
Okay, development standards for this district will provide incentives for small to medium scale development, comma, thus creating a central business district and service center.
That's
We didn't
I.e.
We're not done yet.
yes, there's still chance for forsooth.
Yeah?
You're good? Okay, remember that thus is a four-letter word.
That and amongst others. Albeit.
Okay, and then the rest of the paragraph, I hope we haven't destroyed it somehow. Site design standards will encourage development of buildings located closer to the street. The parking to the side or rear of the building and access from side streets or shared access drives where feasible. A pedestrian-friendly atmosphere should be, should be an integral part of the approach to development.
Do you want to shower instead?
no.
No, because I don't think we're dictating, it may not be fitting, it may not be fitting in some
Exactly.
times.
There's some places where it
There's
doesn't.
one way we need to do should.
And site conditions will determine,
Thank you.
site conditions will determine the maximum density of development. So we're happy with that one.
There's just too much performing.
Okay.
He started it.
No, there were three of them.
I haven't seen this at night.
It can be tough.
Let's go past something with,
Don't make me come over there.
how about it?
I know, by about an acre. M2 designation applies to the areas behind the M1 district and is intended as a mixed-use district which will accommodate more intensive commercial and institutional uses than M1. M2 district will permit small, medium, and large, up to 100,000 square feet, scale wholesale, retail, office, and service uses, as well as community uses of low-impact manufacturing. Couldn't we just say anything goes?
Smelters are out.
Okay, and strip mining. Residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. This was the one where we discussed, if somebody owns acreage there now, and all of a sudden we say you have to have a business, you can't just build a house, that's a no-no, hence the next phrase, or the next sentence. New single-family dwellings without inclusion of a business will be permitted for landowners with parcels existing as of the date of this amendment. So that grandfathers the man, if that's what they want to do.
How about should?
No,
No.
nice try.
Now that,
Madam Chair?
I don't know, depends on what you're gonna say.
Well, that
Never
doesn't,
read it.
that doesn't address subdivision. Single-family dwelling can be, somebody can take that as saying new single-family dwellings, so I can now take that parcel and subdivide it into.
It says new single-family subdivision will be excluded
Oh, I missed that.
in the previous sentence.
Okay, beautiful, I was just following you.
Yes, sir.
One per parcel, that was the agreement. Single.
Well,
Wait a
One
minute,
per
if you
parcel.
want a really big parcel. Well, that's still the deal.
Yeah.
Should this say something
So maybe
about,
it should say.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
How about if a new single-family dwelling without inclusion of a business will be permitted for a landowner with a parcel existing as of the date of this.
So make everything singular. Basically.
Right, otherwise you're saying new family dwellings.
Yeah. That would solve that problem, I think.
I
So
think we've got a problem with the
new
word
single-family
to do
dwelling.
with existing, because the parcel has been existing for time immemorial. We need to have something in here about ownership as of the date of this.
Well, landowners with parcels existing, well.
Parcel's been existing forever.
We might want to switch the words around, I agree with you.
Well, what I'm saying is, instead of existing, should it refer to the ownership of the parcel?
Yeah. All right, well, let's wordsmith it until we're happy. So let's go back to, let's get the singular problem solved first. Any new single-family dwelling, singular, without inclusion of the business will be permitted for
Inclusion of the business, what, within it, attached to it, part of it?
anywhere.
Anyway, so it could be separate building. Okay, I'm just wondering.
No, the idea, let's refresh everybody's memory here. Let's say we had 20 landowners who fell into this particular area, and 19 of them said, I have no problem with this, if I'm gonna put something up, there's gonna be a shoe store attached, I'm all set. But we got one person who said, I bought this land 20 years ago, I have it set aside as my retirement property, all I wanna do is put up a house and retire. So I'm not happy with this new rule because you're zoning me out of my intent. So the purpose of this is to allow that person to, in effect, be grandfathered to their original intent for owning the parcel. So they can take that parcel and put up a single-family dwelling for their own use and not be required to have the business attached or anywhere on the parcel.
But what if somebody had that property with the intent to sell it, or somebody could put a house on it?
Well, as soon as they catch whiff of it, they
They're
can subdivide
gonna
it.
sell it to somebody who's gonna do something with it.
They can subdivide it before it passes.
Easier
Well,
said than done.
I mean, they could, you can't stop them from doing it.
Right, but it's easier said than done, and then they subdivide it for what? It still has to, I mean, it'll still open it up for businesses. I mean, it can still only be businesses in there, and if they subdivide it, there's more to it than just subdividing it. You gotta make sure that you have access to all those, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. And if you're trying to pass this in June, I mean, there's money involved in doing subdivisions. Especially if you have a large piece of land.
It would be, new family subdivisions are included, so it would be more like if somebody broke off a couple of lots.
Right, so if they bought it with
Right.
the intent for them and their child to have it, they could split the lot in two, and then put one in their child's name, and then be able to stop them from doing anything, so it'd be that.
But that child would not be able to put a house on there, based on what we were just talking about.
Well,
Well,
they
yeah,
could if
they
their
would,
name was on it at
you
the
go on
time.
the record.
If it was subdivided before this passed.
Exactly.
But now we're putting, we could be putting hardship on a landowner, we could be forcing a landowner to, who's not financially in a position to subdivide this yet, or, because, I hate putting landowners in that position.
Well, that's gonna happen everywhere, including Monterey.
Well, let's stick to
No,
this
it's not
topic.
taking anything away. Here you're taking things away. On 111, we're not taking anything away, we're not saying that you can't put a house up on 111. So this is taking something away from existing landowner.
But I don't think the intent of the sentence is to change it to think in terms of subdivision. I think it's more in terms of, if I did have a property there and I was thinking of putting it into myself and a child's name, I don't think it's too big a deal to do it, that quickly. I would think as far as,
Split a lot,
not.
pretty easy.
So we've got a frontage on this survey, and we
Well, you have that,
That
right?
transition.
Yeah. What do you do?
About
You
50
have to
feet
have.
that way, it's 38 feet that way.
But it does, because it says right above it, though, subdivisions,
Right.
so you can't do more than.
Now, is
three.
this the district that there's the handful of pieces, the handful of houses in the back? Is this one you would, are we talking about the area that we're talking
Yeah,
about?
this one we said, well, maybe 20 landowners. And you had already spoken to quite a few of them.
I've spoken to several of them.
Yeah. All right, so,
I still have to schedule that with the planning board.
You know,
all right.
my suggestion would be to leave it.
John,
They could,
I'm no longer going to explain my thought process behind why I'm asking this question. Residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of the mixed-use project will be permitted, but new single-family residential subdivision will be excluded from the district. Because with, that's just, verbiage that, it's, Dan and I buy a parcel of two families, and now we want to subdivide that. It almost sounds like, just for clarity, that's just my position, that to specify single-family residential subdivisions because of all the homicide that's happening in this sentence, people may not follow that. That's just my outside reading of it.
As soon as you throw in the single family in there, right off the bat, that puts me in the residential.
Yeah.
Right?
And the subdivision we're talking about here is true subdivision, not just subdividing a lot.
Right.
No, I'm thinking about subdivision period. Subdivision
You're
is
thinking,
subdivision,
okay.
and whether it's approved by the planning board or not.
Well, I mean,
that's
subdivision's the term of art people use, I mean, it's,
Right.
you know, but.
But
that's
when
not
you
what
divide the
mean.
land into two, it's, you've subdivided, whether it's
Subdivision,
regulated
that's
or
not
not.
subdivision, statute.
Sure.
can we, Donna, can we leave can we leave it so it says just residential uses that are part of a mixed-use project would be permitted? And not even get into single or multifamily? You just said residential
well,
uses?
I think we need both. Again, remember, this is going to have to filter down through everybody. They need to know what we meant. So if we leave that out, in 10 years from now, the planning board comes along and somebody wants to do a multifamily, and they say, well, it doesn't say multifamily. This way it's clear that it can be either. All right, let's see if we can solve that additional sentence and have to say what we wanted to say. All right, John's point was a really good one in terms of identifying the parcel and ownership as opposed to the way it is now. So, do you have a suggestion, John?
Not right off the top of my head.
Well, I didn't get that, John, you said, I understand you said existing time immemorial, but parcels haven't. When we start carving up lots, that's when they're created.
So we go by the,
Yeah.
we go by the tax records as of the date.
You go by what's in the registry of deeds. I mean, as you create lots, as you split off a lot, that's when it exists. The land's been there forever, I understand that. Once I start,
Okay, but if the land, if that parcel exists, I haven't thought this through, so bear with me. If that parcel exists and you own it, and I come in after the fact, after this ordinance is passed, and I buy it off you, with this wording, can I go back and say that parcel existed before the date of the ordinance?
Yeah.
I can do what I want with it.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, but that is not the intent
not
of
the
this
intent.
statement.
That's not the intent, that's what it says.
That's what it
The
says.
parcel
That's
exists
what-
now.
That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
with what I think Donna has for intent, I think there should be some mention of ownership of the parcel as of the date of this ordinance.
Okay, so we want to do something like will be permitted for existing landowners or current landowners? No, because current,
If I own 100 acres as of the date of this, I want to keep 25 acres as the original parcel owner. I'm going to subdivide to allow business, but I still want my house.
They got the original parcel, I suppose, but, yeah.
I think at just one point of order we should take into account, kind of writing the ordinance here in a comp plan. Nobody gives a darn. This has no legal standing. They'd say, well, at the adoption of this amendment to this comp plan.
yeah, but if it goes
You
to
wanted,
court,
yeah, but you wanted to say that, you should leave that to the planning board and the ordinance, because they may change it at some future date.
But it's gonna be clear in here on what the.
But don't say this amendment, then. Say in accordance with.
Yeah, I was gonna raise that too. I mean, I don't think
Zoning ordinance.
this document is in any way affecting.
No, a statement like that belongs more in the ordinance, and
Right.
that italicized statement belongs more in the land use than it does in our comprehensive.
Because that is actually an ordinance statement.
Right,
This is
and-
not an ordinance.
But we still want the comp plan to direct the planning board to allow this to happen.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's write it up that way. The planning board should take every effort, well,
The land use ordinance should.
land use ordinance, exactly, good point. Land use ordinance should make every effort to ensure that every property owner at the time of passage, the ordinance passage, has a right to build at least one single-family home on their property, on existing lots.
Which is not, it excludes business.
Yes.
So you stop right at residential uses, both single and multifamily that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted, period. And then in the ordinance, you further define that.
No, you still
No,
need that.
you need to have
you still
the
need that next
subdivision.
phrase.
So you need some phrase to tell the planning board what to put in the ordinance. Because the planning board can do whatever. And have no problem.
Planning board can only suggest, and the residents get to say yes or no.
What if we said something like, the land use regulations should allow a new single-family dwelling without inclusion of a business for landowners with parcels existing as of the date of the amendment?
That kind of like this one, Tom?
We're trying not to have them split it up. Is that what we're trying to do?
We're trying to
How about
preserve business
existing
land,
parcels?
land zone for business,
Okay,
because
but
we have the rest of the town's residential.
They can split it and sell part of the business. We just don't want them to split it into more house lots and
I see.
expect that they'll be able to put single-family dwellings on.
How about this one? Owners of record of an existing parcel may build a single-family dwelling without inclusion of a business.
Owners of a parcel,
that's
the
the
date of
Parcel.
that, because you're otherwise you're saying owners of a parcel.
Well, say, I was of the understanding that the date part, that's the land use ordinance piece. We're just trying to give the planning board a direction.
Then you further identify that, Tad, by spelling out what lots those are as of the date of adoption in the planning board's land use ordinance. It gets
I
kind
don't
of
know that
tricky,
you,
but
I
then
don't know
you
that
know.
you even have to do that, because you go right back to the only day at the time that the land use regulations are passed. That's shown right on the deed, because the deed is dated.
This is interesting, we're attaching this to owners, not to. We're attaching this to owners, so there's not.
And it shouldn't be to,
No.
it should be to the property.
It should be, yes, it should be to the property.
It should be the property, I don't think.
Existing lots of record.
Yeah.
That's
all
the
it
usual
is.
language in the non-conformity. Existing lots of record as of
The date of this ordinance.
the passage of any land use ordinance. But, so we can't, the amendment here passed doesn't impact.
Yeah. What does that mean to the town?
Still struggling with.
18 lots, that's what it is.
Where did I don't bring my own resume.
Well, I have,
Oh, that's
I
it.
have it.
I have the old, when was it you were doing?
I was gonna go to,
Do you want,
The,
what do you want?
the conformance section of shoreline, the conformance section, which is section 3. Line 5, general provisions, in the shoreline zone.
General provisions, yeah, section 5.
Section 5, you would not put a lot of record, let's change years. There we go, special exemptions and resource protection district.
Where are you, what page?
31.
For the concessions in there after.
Yes. Is that it?
Pre-existing lot of record,
Oh. Was it in the proposal?
5.2D.2.
Yeah, it says lot on which the structure is proposed is undeveloped and was established and recorded in the registry of deeds of the county in which the lot is located, or York County, maybe it could say,
That's about it.
before the adoption of the Equal Protection District.
Well, you could put
Yeah,
any,
real simple, it's in the.
Owners of record of an existing parcel may build a single-family dwelling without inclusion of the business.
Existing parcel.
One single.
Well, I was told not to put that in here, but I'm supposed to do that, so. And the comment before, about, you know, this, we're applying this to the owner, not the parcel. Yeah, we are. Because this basically tells somebody who currently owns a piece of land that as of tomorrow, you can't do what you thought you could do. So we're trying to give them, those people, the out. If they sell the land to somebody else, then they know this is coming, yeah.
And the theory is that by developing these standards, the commercial value of that property is going to greatly exceed the residential value. And people will be disinterested in buying residential.
That's easy.
But how about the homeowner, their taxes gonna go up all of a sudden, and they're paying, this, and now it's.
Not if it's still zoned residential, but as soon as it comes out of residential, it gets put in, if it turned to commercial, then it gets reevaluated and
Oh,
value
that-
apply.
always true.
You can't tax for, residential unless,
So what we have is existing lots of record at the time of land use ordinance amendments shall have a right to build one single-family home on the property.
Without the inclusion of the business.
Doesn't matter about the inclusion of the business. You
Yeah.
have the right to have one single.
Exclusion of the businesses is allowed, so.
Yeah, allowed to have one single.
No.
no, the whole reason
The whole
for this was they didn't want a business.
Right,
Right, exactly.
because this.
But you have the right to have one single-family home. Doesn't say, you don't have to say without a business. You have a right to have a single-family home. Because a single-family home doesn't have, by definition, has no business.
No, that defeats the whole purpose of adding this. The whole purpose of adding this this sentence was so that people who currently own lots would understand that that particular lot, as long as they own it, they would be still allowed to build a single-family dwelling without having a business on it.
Because
And I
of the
think we have to be
previous
very
sentence.
clear that that's the intent.
The previous sentence says that residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted. Well, now we're also saying that a single-family dwelling that does not have, or it is not part of a mixed-use project will also be permitted.
That's what you're saying.
Right. So that's why.
And just by saying single-family homes is allowed, you don't have to put the business in there, because
Single-family home by definition, you're allowed to have one single-family home when you own it. Existing.
We're chasing each other around.
Yeah.
I don't understand, why not? Because a single-family home by definition is a single-family home. The requirement to have, and you can put a single-family home anywhere,
as long as it's business.
as long as it's business, but this also says you also have a right to add, if you own that property, if that property is a lot of record at the time that the ordinance is passed, then you have a right to build one single-family home.
Right.
okay.
But you need to say that.
That's what
I
we
just
did.
did,
We
didn't
just
I?
did.
That's what you just said.
No, there was a part to what you said that contradicted it,
I don't think so.
unless I misunderstood it. Give it another shot.
Okay, existing lots of record at the time of land use ordinance amendments shall have the right to build one single-family home on the property.
All right, it's what it doesn't say, but, all right.
But if you want me to put it without it,
inclusion of a business.
Inclusion of the business, we can do that.
It's redundant from the sentence
Yes.
before it,
Exactly.
as
Okay.
far as I understand.
Yeah, I can live with it.
That would be in lieu of the italicized.
Yes.
Okay. Do we go with that?
You just have to add without inclusion of the business.
No.
No,
No?
Read the whole statement and you see it being written.
Start with residential
Yeah.
uses. Cal.
There we go.
Residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project, will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. New, existing lots of record at the time of land use ordinance amendments shall have the right to build one single-family home on the property.
I think the last sentence should start with owners of lots of record, with lots of record, not to give them the right to be made. The owners of the lots of record can be given.
Owner, yes, because you could still, you don't have to be the owner at the time of the adoption,
Anyhow,
but the owner of that lot that existed before the adoption.
right, because that lot of record could get sold after the adoption.
It
Somebody
was
come in
still
and
a lot
say,
of
hey, it's
record.
still a lot of record, I want to build a house.
You guys are as bad as the planning board.
We've been through this before.
As of the date of, it should be amendments or just amendments?
Well, I was gonna say that, because my issue with the amendments is,
We amend this all the time.
we amend this all the time.
Which one?
It has to be specific as to what amendment it is.
It's not this, we don't care about amendments to this, we care about amendments to the zoning ordinance.
Right, but he said amendments.
Good point, you can put dated blank, whatever it passes, that's what goes in there.
Yes.
Okay, and that's it.
Would you read it one more time?
I don't know if I
In
can.
German, it's not
Just
exact.
remember, owners now, you have to
Oh,
start
I have
with
to
that.
read out,
On your-
because
Italic
lots are
part.
inanimate.
Right.
Correct.
Owners of existing lots of record at the time of the land use ordinance revision blank, it would be as of revisions to the ordinance dated, is what it should say. Dated, 2014, June 13, 2014, shall have the right to build one single-family home on the property. Can I get an amen?
Hallelujah.
Why would we stick a date into the comp plan? Doesn't the comp plan come first?
Yes.
I would say it's as of the date of the revision or the adoption of the land use ordinance revision or the new land use.
Right, and I didn't have,
That's where we start running.
I
Yeah.
think it needs to be, comp plan comes first.
Yes.
So when this is adopted, the planning board will then revise, but this date, everything that follows this date will not be included.
So as of the adoption of the comp plan.
Adoption of the comp plan.
There you go.
Because they can change the land use ordinances as many times as they can. I mean, technically, they can change the comp plan.
right, and that was my
30 years down
issue
the
with
road.
saying changing passage of the ordinances, because it could be ordinance in what year.
But
So what
Well,
does it say
they-
now? 'Cause I can't read mine at all anymore.
I can't either.
Owners of existing lots of record,
I just don't think this has any weight.
Right, comp plan
It
doesn't.
has no
Yeah, I
weight.
can enforce that.
Can't, which is perfect.
It's not, it goes right back to intent.
yes. Well,
Here,
let's not put dates in at all, because
No.
that applies to what we have here.
I
Owners of
have-
existing lots of record shall have the right to build one single-family dwelling.
period.
If you don't put
So,
a
it was
date,
emphatic.
if you don't put a date in, then it just goes
Right.
forever.
But the
And we're trying to limit it. We're trying not to take away the rights of the person who owns the property when we pass this new comp plan.
Right, and that will
If
be
we
the
take out,
date,
if we take out the date,
but the date will be on the document.
Which document?
This document.
This
It's fine
document.
with adopted.
The comp plan has the date on it, which at this rate will probably be
I'm
about
sorry, I thought you just
23rd.
said you wanted to take the date out.
So it's the actual
In the
document.
statement, in that statement, we don't say the date, because it's the whole document that is being adopted at some point with a date on, say, it's June 13th, 2014, so that is the whole document, that all the statements in it become valid as of that date. You don't say that on each page.
And then the land use ordinance, when the particulars are written, will back that up.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not convinced, but
It's not our intent, right, to confine this option, if that's what you want to have, to build a single-family dwelling to just the owners of record as of now or the date of passage of this.
Yes, it is.
So if I own it and then sell it,
If you sell it after this is passed, the new owners can't do
it's no
this.
longer, I mean, that's the
That's
everybody's
right.
intent. So it's
Yeah.
only those people who own it right now who are going to have the right to build a single-family dwelling. If they don't, sell it to somebody else, that right is gone.
Right.
Whoa.
I don't think that's enforceable.
I don't either.
You get into legacy parcels, Ted.
And that's kind of where I was going earlier when I mentioned that.
That's not gonna fly.
It's not. It's not.
Why
You can't, you can't make that kind of selection.
Hmm.
No. That's basing the law on persons.
Yeah, you know, that's a pretty hefty constitutional argument.
Would that be a taking, no?
Yeah.
That would be preventing.
Well, first of all, you've got arbitrary and capricious decision making.
Absolutely.
It's clearly for locals and not for anybody else who's,
So.
Well, if it's a single family dwelling and it's only on those lots, and it only affects those lots, it really doesn't matter who's on record.
But I only raised it because when I was here, John talking, I said, are we just talking about 18 folks here?
No, I think, I thought the intent of that was the 18 parcels, not the 18 people who own it right
And
now.
I don't even have an issue with the 18 parcels. As long as it's a parcel, they don't lose their right to sell it, they don't lose their right to what they can do with it when they bought it. It doesn't allow them to expand it, doesn't allow them to subdivide it, doesn't, unless they're putting a business on it, it doesn't allow them to put a subdivision on it. So I don't know that it really makes, to me, it doesn't really make that much difference whether it's the person who bought it today or the person who bought it 2 years from now. All they want to do is put a single family house on it, go for it.
I agree. What it would stop is if somebody has a large piece of property and says, I want to subdivide it, I want businesses over here, and I want to put a house over there, they can't do that.
Unless they say it's a mixed use and you want something.
Exactly, but somebody may say, I got 10 acres, and you know what, I'm gonna leave this for businesses, and I'm gonna sell my son a little piece here to put up a house.
Yeah.
They can't do that, because subdivisions are excluded.
And yet the planning board is resisting a PUD in that district. Planned mixed use development. It's PUD.
Maybe something as simple as it is the intent of this zone is to minimize single-family residential uses, period. And the planning board can take that as they may and carry it to that next level that says, okay, we want to limit residential single-family uses. Here's how we're going to limit it. We're going to allow these lots to have a single-family use on it and keep it as general as possible.
Well, again, remember
I don't
this-
want to see our town.
But this is supposed to be,
Spend 5 hours on it.
this, I mean, I like Todd.
Specifically general, or specifically vague.
That's the intent of this, really, is to kind of set, you know, a guideline, this is where you're going, and then the planning board interprets that and puts the, so you can't be too specific.
This sets an outline.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is
And
the
I
intent to
think-
limit in single family and to promote mixed use, residential mixed use, projects or residential, well, not.
Well, I think the homeowner should be able to put a single family Yeah.
start chopping it up after that.
Yeah.
And you get money in the water.
And we don't even know, we're hoping we're gonna get all these
And
businesses.
then one
in
person
there.
gets to do
Yeah.
it, then the other neighbor buys.
And that will
property.
dictate
They want to
to
go
that
back to the way.
landowner at the time. If I have, somebody has a business on this piece of property next to me, I'm probably gonna sell my land as commercial, because we've established a business community there. So I keep it as vague as we could for them to be able to. Suppose there is no business comes down to that area, and that person wants to still put his house on it. I wouldn't want to squeeze him or her out of there, you know?
And that's what the intent of this committee is. The committee wants to ensure that, you know, it's some of the aspirations of the planning board and of this body may take 20, 30 years for it to realize. At the same time, the planning board also warns that if our intent is to create a central business district, we also don't want to fill our central business district out with single-family homes, because that's kind of an impediment to business, because you're not going to tear down a $200,000 home, you're going to put a $400,000 business, because, quite frankly, you're going to be a popular one, because you're starting to lose.
But then you have the landowners at the planning board meetings and businesses and stuff coming in saying, well, we have a house there, we don't want this, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's pretend for a moment that we were doing this right. And the planning board had not already written their thing. But we said, gee, this would be a good place to encourage businesses with households together. How would we write that?
Exactly what Todd was mentioning.
I'm just reading it again. The N2 district will permit small, medium, and large 110 square foot scale, wholesale, retail, office, and service uses, as well as community uses and low impact manufacturing, while discouraging single-family residential development. Something to that effect. Because it should just be as general as we're not looking for subdivisions of single-family homes, we're not looking for large expanses. I'm not putting that in. But
Yeah.
to simply generalize it, that. Planning board then sees to discourage single-family development and should realize that now we need to not allow single-family residential development.
I think that gives the planning board way too much latitude.
And I think
Well,
that.
it's not the planning board, it's the citizens, because
Well-
remember, they still have to pass this ordinance.
Yes, I understand that. The planning board, just to say, and to discourage, that's gonna knock, it has a potential of knocking the poor guy who wants to put his retirement home out of the batter's box. Because then they can end up writing basically, kind of what they've written, and we're trying to get away from that, or back off from that a little bit.
How many property owners were we talking about here? We're talking about 8 to 10, right?
Well,
Didn't we agree that we were talking about only 8 to 10 property
I
owners?
thought we were talking a little more than that, but see, it doesn't matter to me. As far as I'm concerned, if we take one property owner in this town, anywhere in this town, and restrict their use because it serves the greater good, I don't want to be part of that.
And we ought to abandon all hope of any zoning, because no
Well-
matter what you do,
Well, no,
you're
that's
gonna
not
have
true.
some
No,
impact
that's
on
not
You
true.
don't have to take somebody's property rights out from under them in mid-ownership.
There's no way you can do zoning, Donald, without taking somebody's rights.
Yeah, you
Or
can.
you're going to impact somebody's rights in some way if you're doing
Well,
zoning.
there's a big difference to me between an impact and a wholesale, no, you just can't build a house there. Sorry.
Well, you're not saying that, you're discouraging. So you can't.
No, we're saying, if we use your language, we'd say that in here,
Yes.
but that, to me, gives the land use ordinance too much latitude in terms of then coming up with a concrete, no, you just can't. And that's what we were trying to fix, to still allow for that possibility of the one landowner who, that was their intent when they bought the land, and doesn't want a house now, but just want to have one in 2 years.
And I want it very clear to them that if they bought it with the intent of putting a single-family house on it, that they still have the right to do that.
Right, but after the adoption of this, they will no longer have that right.
Yes, they will.
They should, though.
They shouldn't. I don't believe they should. They should have the right to build a house on it, but you shouldn't have the right to buy it from somebody to put a house on it.
I agree with Todd, but I think from what Tom said,
That's
that's not going to
problematic,
hold
right.
up.
You can't do that.
Yeah, see, I could agree to that too, because that's after the fact. But if you you know, if you have a constitutional issue with that, then you can't do it. So there has to be another way around this.
And the only way is to limit the law.
Classically preserve what's there. That's why we have these non-conformity standards. They classically said, when this is enacted or any amendments are enacted, whatever you've got, you still got. I'm not gonna take it from you. So if these folks now have existing lots and they have, whether they have intentions now or not,
Right.
you want to preserve their opportunity to build on
Exactly.
that. I just don't know why you just don't
It's like-
say that. I mean, existing lots of record, you may construct
It's like a non-conforming. use
single-family
today.
residence on any existing lot of record.
Yeah, we have plenty of businesses today that are non-conforming businesses. The ordinance has changed. That business has continued, and a lot of those businesses have changed ownership. And some of those businesses have expanded on what's allowed. So to tell the landowner, you know, we're talking out of both sides.
No, and that's what I'm saying, is I don't have an issue if that piece of property gets, exchanges hands,
They
as
still have
long
the
as
right
it
to-
stays one lot, and it stays, and they just put one house on it.
Right.
But you can't take the one lot, divide it into four, and expect that you can have four houses.
But
It's one lot.
can you have the one lot, build your house on it, then divide it into four?
No.
You can.
You could, but.
You
But
can,
you can't
but
put
you
a house
can't put a
on it.
house on it.
Right, no, absolutely, but you could put four commercial lots then.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
What if we went back to the first sentence here? Entry designation applies to the area behind the Inland District and is intended as a mixed-use district, which will accommodate more intensive commercial. What if we said, instead of accommodate, encourage? Because I think that sets a different tone. And that seems to be what we're really trying to do there.
Yeah.
And then, once we've said encourage, then they encourage.
So that now changes.
That's-
Yeah, now we're diluting out the business aspect of this district.
No, that strengthens it. Accommodating is a weaker word to me than encouraging.
Encourage more intensive commercial.
Encourage is much better.
Will mandate.
Yeah, well, you can mandate, but you won't get any land use
Okay.
regulations in your comp plan tax.
And then if we kept all of the original language, including the 100,000 square foot piece we added.
So keep the first sentence.
Yes, and then-
And then a new single-family dwelling without inclusion of business would be permitted for landowners or possible.
Don't go that.
That.
Leave both sentences. So M2 district will permit small, medium, large scale wholesale retail office, etc. Residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project would be permitted. And new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. Single-family dwellings without inclusion of a business will be permitted. Just let it go with that.
I think it should be one new single-family dwelling.
A new.
would be permitted. I
Well,
think it should be one new, when you say
So-
new single-family dwellings will be permitted.
well, but if there, let's say there were 10 parcels and 2 people want to do it, it's not one,
If you're worried about,
one per parcel.
if you're worried about the planning board going too far off base with restricting what can happen on that lot, and you just stop at new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district, that gives them the room to be able to allow those.
Single.
You know, we're worried about giving the planning board too much leeway to go too far by the restrictions. Well, if you were to stop at new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district, period. No further clarification. Then the planning board has the ability to say, well, this isn't a new residential subdivision, it's a parcel that exists, and they can write that into the ordinance.
Right, but my issue with saying new single-family dwellings without inclusion of business will be permitted is, my concern is if they do split the lot. We need to make it very clear to the planning board that the intent is not to allow them to split a large parcel into 4 so that they can build 4 single-family units. So it would be a new single-family dwelling per lot will be permitted without the
You can't subdivide.
inclusion of a business.
This is telling them that you can't subdivide.
Right,
For a single-family subdivision.
So If you leave it as is,
Well, you can split it in two without causing a subdivision.
But the
No.
technical.
No, you're talking about,
Then
no, you're
you
talking
can
about.
split it between your family, not
Not
cause.
for,
still a
not for,
subdivision.
it's still a subdivision, but it doesn't go under, it's not a planning
It's
board
not
review.
legal, it's not a planning board
It's
or
an
approved
exempted
subdivision.
as soon as you
subdivision.
cut a piece, it's a subdivision.
Okay.
Cut a piece of land, it's a subdivision.
That does explain it.
So what that does is, that tells them that you can't, I've got this big piece of property, I can't subdivide it to put a single family home. But I've got this big piece of property, I can put a single family home on it.
And I can sell it for business. If I wanted to.
Or you can
split
sell it
up.
for residential if you wanted to.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't get subdivided, you can subdivide it, but as soon as you subdivide it, that language tells me that I have to put a business in it.
Right, right.
But if I read that sentence, I would take it as residential uses that are part of a mixed-use project would be permitted. It doesn't say anything about some that are not part of a mixed-use project.
That's my problem with it.
So unless you would
Right.
put mixed-use projects
But-
will be.
That's telling me that it's allowed. What you're saying
No,
is if it's not part of a mixed use, you're allowed to put a house there on that piece of property.
see, it's telling me that if it's part of it, it's allowed. If it's
Well,
not-
absolutely, and we're encouraging that, right? We're encouraging that,
But if
that
I
is
put, but
permitted.
but if I read that, it doesn't say anything to me about just a single family without being part of the mixed use or without being part of the subdivision being allowed. It just says,
It's implied, it doesn't tell you that you can't do it, so it allows you to do it.
I don't read that the way down.
I don't either.
We have to
Single
address
family
it.
says-
Somehow we have to add something.
Residential use of single family that are part of the
Might not like
project will be
it, but we
permitted.
have to write something in there.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be part of. That's what we permitted. I don't think it's implied that,
So a new single-family dwelling without inclusion of a business would be permitted for landowners or for parcels existing as of the date of this amendment. Would be permitted, or is it be for parcels
Owners of
existing?
No.
So why don't we just, residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted. Single-family residences will be allowed, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded. Maybe we can wordsmith that a little bit.
Yeah, just add another phrase.
Yeah, add the phrase of the
Yeah,
single-family
single
home. And what that does, that stops somebody from subdividing, but allows the planning board latitude to say,
Yeah.
if you own that piece of property, you can put a house there.
Yeah.
It's like single family home are allowed,
That's
but
not
not.
I'll be it.
You couldn't.
Residential uses, both single and multifamily,
Give the
that are part
room
of a
further.
mixed-use project will be permitted. Why don't we end the sentence there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In addition,
single-family
single-family
New
dwellings.
single
dwellings
family?
Will be permitted.
will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded.
There we go.
And that takes care of that last, takes that last sentence out.
Makes sense to you, Ted?
I didn't get it. Because I was writing my own.
Okay, I'll read it again for everybody. So, residential uses, both single and multifamily, that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted, period. In addition, single-family dwellings will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. So we're just adding the phrase, in addition, single-family dwellings will be permitted, comma, but.
Dan's the man.
Nice job, yeah.
Where was it half an hour ago, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, better late than never.
How much you get paid?
It's all under the table.
Just enough.
We're done. Put it away.
Well, it was just, we're trying to write this stuff like we're writing an ordinance, and we're not. We're writing, you know what it's saying? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, property owners should have a right to be able to build one single-family home on the lot. On the lot that existed at the time this thing's passed.
Accommodation shall be made for.
No, that's still too much, let's be like,
Let's
we've
move
done
on.
Bentleys.
Next, let's move on.
We just, again, we just
No,
again in the final review.
We're going
Okay.
to pass, because it's now 8:30.
I told you this agenda was too long.
You're-
Okay, development standards, we have no problem with that little paragraph, I assume. Great. M3, well, yes, sir.
I want to throw a wrench into the works.
Oh, go ahead.
No way.
One thing we haven't talked about is infrastructure in any of these things.
Should we have some?
I think so.
I think it should be a separate section.
Explain, what do you mean we haven't talked about infrastructure?
Well,
The comprehensive plan doesn't,
Why should the
Sure
plan,
does.
why should the comp plan have to address infrastructure?
because that's what you plan for. You plan for infrastructure. Well, I'm wondering if we should talk about utilities.
Oh, good gravy, I don't have enough time in my life.
In what way?
Like how it's so.
Like getting them in.
Something in the existing
When you
table
talk about how you're gonna pay for it.
of utilities.
That's not the comp plan's problem. That's the capital improvement section. But I'm wondering if that's something, if we're really trying to achieve what we're talking about, some of this stuff's gonna need sewer and water. We have water. We have water.
Isn't that in the original comp plan then?
Yeah, it is.
talk
There's a
about
timetable we have to address this.
remedies and
Blue arrow.
Yeah, it's completely one. But I'm just wondering if it's something that we should address in this section of here, not keep it separate from the utility section. How do people feel about it? Because remember, this is the guide that the guide both for the planning board and more importantly, for the selectmen too.
It may already be in the table, Ted.
Wasn't it on the table?
I don't know, it seems to me I kind of remember.
I
seeing it.
remember.
There was something.
Yeah, it was there somewhere.
It was.
But you're not gonna get people in this town for those money.
It has to
Yeah,
be-
but I'm looking a little farther than 5 years ago.
Doesn't matter, still not gonna get them paid for.
Sure.
I'm
It's
saying,
a water pressure.
section F7, I have the table at the very end of the comp plan is
So the existing code.
create economic growth that is in keeping with the rural character of Arundel. We have 5 policies, include job opportunities, encourage the establishment of small retail service businesses with needs, opportunities. Yep, 28.3, CMP on enforcement of property owners and three-phase power.
And you also have on the table on section F3, you get section 9, where it talks about the water company, it talks about the sewer. Explore options, which is our job.
What was that, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's
Well, medium 1 to 3 years, maybe 3
Well,
to
you're on
5.
that, well, it's not.
Chapter 23.
Yeah, that's picture, I'm sorry.
It says, in all probability, all further water main extensions in Arundel will be privately funded by residential and commercial parties and immediate Arundel will need to find alternate disposal facilities for septic.
3 to 5 years. That's 2007.
Missed it.
It summarizes what's here, so you do have it in there.
So it is in another section.
Yeah, and I'm sure it talks about it back here somewhere.
Yeah,
I remember reading it.
Yeah, I got it.
Is that policy?
The
First, the goal, but it also.
Only up to 1,000 feet is really.
So
If you keep going, Diane, you're gonna get to it.
Okay. Well,
So they are addressing, we maybe,
and we make a reference to it.
yes.
And that's why I was bringing it up, making a reference. This is still part of the comp plan. But if we're happy with it, what's the policy say?
On what, Jack?
We should have a policy on the left-hand side, on the left-hand side. It's not a policy.
Can we just add something at the bottom under development
Think about
standards?
it. Yeah.
Under development standards, can you just add, will allow for more intensive commercial and institutional uses, making maximum use of the available land as site conditions permit and infrastructure expansion increases or something?
Is provided.
Or is provided
Yeah,
as infrastructure?
So that's not.
how about as improved infrastructure is provided?
Okay.
Businesses and business and commercial uses should be encouraged to provide, to extend within short.
Provided keeps it up in the air, we would say it's all up to you guys.
Right? Shall.
I eat.
Sounds a better word than
Vis-a-vis.
So you're putting infrastructure in there and it's kind of very general?
Yeah, it makes a reference to it.
Okay.
It applies to policy 9. It clearly talks about
Development standards,
Yes. Yep.
So
Explore
development,
options for community sewer disposal to serve commercial and urban residential areas only. So much for the R4 district.
development standards for this district will complement the building patterns in M1, but will allow for more intensive commercial and institutional uses, making maximum use of the available land as site conditions permit, and as improved infrastructure is provided.
That way, if you add sewer, you can
Just imagine along with me.
you can improve the, you can maximize your, so as improved.
After the word permit,
Yeah.
not to stand as improved infrastructure is provided.
We're talking about M2, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we put that in anyone too?
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
You're gonna do it in two, you might.
yeah, more probably, you have one, and do it with two.
Yeah, M1 actually has a higher density than
So we can add that to site conditions during the basis of development. And can be increased as improved infrastructure,
Well, how about site conditions and infrastructure
Yes.
will
Yeah,
determine?
okay. Conditions and infrastructure.
Is he making a road there? I can do it.
Sadly, he's
Yeah.
right.
Ted, you and I will both type this out and see if in any way they agree.
It'll be really interesting to compare, won't it?
Were we at the same meeting?
It's like
I
a
don't know.
DNA comparison. No match.
Okay. Are we happy with them too?
Thrilled.
I think we've beat this to death.
Oh, no.
Well, then,
We couldn't.
well, no, we
Several
agree with
meetings
this
to that.
process. This is not necessarily the last time we'll look at this language.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it will be perfect. We'll do it.
I'm sorry, you should have grabbed more.
Gateway District, the M3 designation applies to the northern end of the Route 1 corridor and is intended as a mixed-use district accommodating residential, business, and community uses. We had nothing we wanted to change with this, so I'll just keep going. M3 District will permit small to medium-scale retail, office service, community uses, as well as single and multi-family dwellings. New single-family subdivisions will not be permitted. M3 District will permit small to medium-scale wholesale retail, office and service uses, as well as community uses and low-impact manufacturing. Residential uses, both single and multi-family, that are part of a mixed-use project will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. I see we have the
So
same
we're gonna do
problem
that
here.
same thing here.
Yeah.
Small lot sizes and limited setbacks shall encourage maximum use of the suitable land available for development, and yeah, I think we should.
Okay, so let's just start this, right, we're talking about the Proctor Road area, right? So the pattern of development there is already residential use, right?
We're not thinking about Proctor.
Not that far out, right?
We're not going down that far. Proctor Road to the bend.
Okay.
Then it's residential.
Okay.
Okay? And you know what I'm talking
Yep.
about. It makes that extreme
Yep.
tangent.
Yep.
Because it's all resident. There's only what? You got Kenny Canyon, you got a couple other ones.
Green company out there.
So you're talking more like the antique place, like after Rundle Auto, going down
you couldn't develop in between
Yeah.
Route 1 and Proctor Road right there
No,
anyway,
it's,
so.
it agrees, it's just.
No, but I wasn't sure how far over we're going, because the pattern there is already residential. I don't see that.
Does that have sewer up to the bridge?
No, it has sewer up to the Rundle, Auto.
Probably because of the Exxon.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, then we brought the Exxon. They were
So, it's right there, just tantalizing, right on the border.
So do we want to avoid that same problem we just spent a long time discussing, include that, change the sentence with the same phrasing?
Are there any residential uses in that gateway? Or
Yeah,
any-
although, all the property owners I've talked to want to get rid of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's not too many houses.
Well, once you get over the bridge, right, so once you get over the bridge, you've got some.
Old Post Road.
Somebody's living in that house that sells cars right there, that red one, right as you get over the bridge, somebody lives there.
That's mixed use.
That's
That's
mixed
mixed use,
right,
that's okay.
The builder is mixed use,
The church is,
which is, who knows?
The other side, though,
It
there's
is a residence.
There's some homes along
Yeah.
Old Post Road.
No doubt before you even get to the bridge, there's some homes.
yeah, there's.
Yeah, that's,
There's a few.
yeah, there's
a couple back there.
a couple back, where the next new shop or whatever it is, yeah. Those property owners have told me they're going to sell and get out, or at least, I mean, they're excited because if we do change this to, if the planning board were to change this, or the town, I should say, were to change this to the same kind of thing as the DB1, yeah, well, it doubles the number of lots they can get. They don't have the frontage, but now they can have 2 lots, or they have 1. So to them, it's a real incentive to tear down what they've got for basically trailers there and put in something, or sell it for something decent. And soil's not bad, actually. It's not, actually really good.
Okay, so let me ask the question then. In M1, new single-family subdivisions will be excluded. In M2, new single-family subdivisions will be excluded. In M3, new single-family subdivisions will not be permitted.
And then three.
No,
I've got permission.
Mine says
Not
new
be permitted.
single-family will not be permitted.
and uses.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Uses,
I was,
and
I was,
uses. So should we,
So it's.
for uniformity, should will be excluded?
And not be permitted.
So what are the
You're on the second
excluded?
sentence, right?
Excluded.
Residential uses with single multifamily that are part of the mixed-use project will be permitted.
But new single-family subdivisions will be excluded.
Uses, look under uses,
You're in usage.
Under uses, done.
M3
Thank you.
uses.
I was lost.
Right above the first underline.
In other words, just to keep it
M3
consistent,
uses.
One
right?
half new
Yeah.
single-family subdivisions will be
Yeah,
excluded from
M1,
this
M2,
district.
M1 and M2 is excluded.
I was looking in development standards.
So should we change M3 or change M1 and 2?
Change it.
That was unanimous. Very nice, all right.
Well-
Excluded is a little bit, less
Not as harsh.
aggressive.
Yeah,
as-
right.
So it's gonna say new single-family subdivisions will be excluded?
Yes.
Yeah.
From this district.
To keep it consistent with the other two.
Right, every paragraph below, which is, I was confused. And then, do we want to do the same thing that we did in M2, with in the paragraph below, residential uses, both single and multifamily that are part of the mixed-use project will be permitted. In addition, single-family dwellings will be permitted, but new single-family subdivisions will be excluded.
So I don't think we have as many residential.
Well, just to allow for the possibility. I mean, even if nobody wants to do it, I mean, go back, if there's one person.
So this is your gateway, to me, this is more like your M1 district than your M2 district.
It doesn't matter.
I don't want to take on landowners.
No.
Have you got that in M1 as well?
Thanks, Simone.
Well, no, but I mean, M1 and Gateway are similar districts.
But we did the same thing, the single-family subdivisions will be excluded.
Right.
Yeah,
But you didn't.
We didn't say
You
Single
can't put in a
family.
single-family subdivision, really.
but they're talking about the single
That
outside.
single,
Back to
that same phrase that we took an hour to develop.
It should go in all
Should
three.
go in all three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in addition, single family will be
Yeah.
permitted, but new single family subdivisions will be excluded from this district. That
So-
should be in each section.
See, but
I think that's a mistake, putting that phraseology into the M1 and the M3, because you really have a very limited area right along the road. I can see putting it into the M2 where you have a more expansive area, and if you get a few houses, it really doesn't make any difference. But where you're limited on your road frontage and you're trying to promote some business use, I think in my opinion, it's a mistake to encourage residential development.
Quite frankly, John, in addition to that, those are not dream home house lots. That's not a place where I could imagine you would.
So,
No, but if it's
they
all,
take
if it's all they
advantage
own and they can't afford to buy something else and that's where they want to build, I'm not gonna be the one to tell them they can't put their house there. I would want somebody doing it to me.
I mean,
If that's all they own and the zoning is changed to commercial use there, I would think, wouldn't they make out better selling it to somebody who can use it for commercial use?
Well,
buy somewhere
say
else.
hypothetically they've got really bad credit. Selling it and trying to buy something else, they
They've
wouldn't
got
be able,
really
they
bad
wouldn't be
credit,
able
they're
to
not
do it.
gonna get a
Bill
mortgage.
Hudson.
That's right, but they might be able to do something on the existing lot they're on because they already own it. See, for some people, selling and buying something else is not always possible, but keeping what they have and doing something on it, maybe.
that compounds the problem though. In M1, I don't think, in that situation where somebody might bring a mobile home in, you don't want that mobile home in M1. In M2 it would be okay because you're not affecting that, the look that we were looking for, so we talked about. When a single mobile home 50 feet from Route 1 in the M1 district can ruin a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't like it,
That's the
then
same
you gotta
thing
have to
with
find a way to
Cambridge.
buy that piece of property from that person, but I'm not gonna be the one to sit here and take that property right away.
the clash here between one philosophical point and another. I mean, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I agree with John's point. These may not be the right places to have, a house stuck in, but I also still want to be sensitive to property rights.
I think that's the best
Yeah.
way out.
It's worth more commercial if I have a piece there.
Yeah.
Well, then logically doesn't, I mean, if you do own the piece and it's worth more as commercial land, that you would sell it and you're building a house somewhere else. So this issue may never actually come up.
But it's allowing it for,
Yeah, it's
it's
allowing
allowing
it to come up.
it. And we are trying to inform, this really is our idea, right? I mean, it's our job, that's what I see. And then we'll
What you're doing in some cases is you're not removing property rights, you're removing residential development rights. You're putting in commercial or mixed use rights. You're not eliminating residential. You're eliminating residential as a standalone in a very small area of town that you're trying to create a gateway to.
I think for the number of times it's gonna come up, I don't think that it's worth really being people on this spot. Because it's gonna be them and their friends that come in and vote for them.
What happens, that's what happens.
That's what happens, yeah.
They can put it
Communities
in-
gotta make
gotta have some vision
decisions,
here.
you know, on what they wanna do.
Do you want this to be commercial? I mean, some
It's
commercial
commercial.
properties don't want residences within the zone in which they're.
Right, but it comes to a point where this is beyond a vision. This is becoming more of a dictatorship, and we can't do that because the town doesn't own it, the town didn't buy it, the town didn't work to pay it, didn't work to pay the taxes on it. So, I'm sorry, but I still think that we need to be sensitive to the people who actually own those pieces of property, purchase them, and pay the taxes on them, and do the upkeep on them.
Well, I don't think right now they can put a residential.
They can't. They can't
That's
put
in
a
a big
residence
one
on
right
it.
now.
It's being one right now, they can't put a
It's a good
residence.
put a residence.
It's also saying commercial seven.
No, we're talking right now, but
Yeah, we're
which
talking
one
about-
was Gateway, the one on, I thought this was the one on.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is,
no, well, we went back and said, you know, let's look at M1 too, and that was so.
and
sort of
residents
like-
aren't allowed in B1.
And one,
Right, so-
three.
So if they're not allowed,
So
then
we don't
I'm
want-
not
so then-
actually continuing it, but I don't wanna take it away from them.
But M3 is not an issue then.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not permitted. Sorry.
M3 is part of what this is now?
It's part of BI.
Right.
We're actually
Added
Allowed
residential,
uses now.
we're adding residential where you didn't have it.
That's right.
Actually,
but mixed use.
yeah.
So if it wasn't allowed, I'd have an issue, because you haven't taken anything away, because it wasn't allowed.
So I don't think we need to include
But-
it in
Right. So M3 is
M3
allowed.
M3, but weren't you talking about, weren't we back at M1? Because M1 is the CCS district.
I didn't go back there.
Yes, I did that, I said, no.
Simone did that.
It's allowed. because it's
Yeah, well, I
allowed
think
today,
they
but-
They should be similar, because to me, one is a gateway one way and the other one's a gateway of the other end of town, so.
It's true, it is the
it's-
gateway to the south.
Yeah, it's, gateway one, gateway one, gateway two, to me, that's the impression that I'm getting that we're trying to do, So, and I don't think they should be allowed in either gateway.
Well, they are today. They're allowed today in the CCS district.
Yes, yeah.
which is.
M1, that's the one.
That's it, I'm not gonna talk.
I doubt that.
I liked it better with the M3, where it's stopped and it's redundant to say from this district. New single-family subdivisions will be excluded, period. You're talking about M2, you're talking about the uses.
Yes.
You can eliminate all the in-this districts. M1 has it as well. I
Yeah.
think it sounds cleaner.
Right.
Will be excluded.
That's one of the reasons why I said we will not be done with this. Keep going back and.
Promise I won't come next
Does your page look like that?
Yeah, well, it's
So
not,
you're getting that
I write
done?
a little smaller than you do, but yeah, it's a mess. All right, so with the exception of changing in M3 that uses statement, so it says new single-family subdivisions will not be, or will be excluded. And development standards, we're getting rid of, in the next to last sentence, the phrase from this district. Everything else there is okay.
But currently, M3 doesn't allow subdivisions. Correct.
It doesn't allow
Yeah.
residential
Allow
or
residential.
unless,
Except for an accessory use, which
it's an accessory use, which basically is mixed use, but it's sort of like the it's like the DB1, it's actually mimicking the DB1. But the DB1 is mimicking the BI, which says, yeah, you can have residential, but it's got to be part of the mixed use project.
All these alphabets going around here.
So we're good with M3? M4. M4 was short and sweet, we didn't change anything. But we may want to now because we're good at it. M4 designation applies to the nexus of the Rundle Road, Log Cabin Road, and Senate Road, known as Townhouse Corner. This district has historically been a mixed-use district and an important institutional and commercial crossroads. The M4 district will permit small-scale retail, office service, and community uses as well as single and multi-family dwellings. New construction shall be designed to reflect the character of the surrounding residential neighborhoods with a minimum lot size of 1 acre.
Sounds good to me.
Okay?
And
Should
actually,
we
believe it or
have-
not, they have infrastructure down there.
And should it
And
include
one.
where you're putting single family, multifamily, and mixed use dwellings, or and mixed use? Are we allowing mixed use there, so if somebody wants to turn an apartment into a business and an apartment above it?
Yes. That's what multifamily would be.
Yeah,
Well,
no, multifamily to me is a duplex or an apartment complex or something.
But there's no reason, well, frankly
It's not
speaking,
mixed use.
Almost not.
because I think of things in vertical stratification. That's why. Yeah, you could say mixed use. I would recommend doing mixed use because this is an area where we actually already have situations
Or mixed
where
use.
we have mixed use, where we actually do have the shop on the
So we
first
just
floor
add it at
and
the
the
end,
front, and the
multifamily
owner on the
dwelling
second
units,
floor.
mixed uses?
That's what
Yeah,
bicycle
mixed
shops
use,
are,
yeah.
right now.
Is
So,
that what we're gonna say?
Mixed use housing, I would suggest just add another sentence that says mixed use projects will be permitted.
Yep.
We've got both single and multi-family credit, right?
Yeah.
so we
Now
have,
we have mixed use.
F4 district will permit small scale retail, office service, and community uses as well as single and multi-family dwellings. Mixed use projects will be permitted.
And next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do it all.
I know.
That's good.
There's something.
Okay. M5, which is currently community commercial north. M5 designation applies to the eastern end of Route 111 from the Littleton city line for a distance of 4,100 feet on the north side of Route 111 to Litchfield Drive on the south side of Route 111. This area will extend 1,000 feet from Route 111 on the south side and from Littleton city line on the north side. M5 district should allow for a mix of small, and we did some changes here, small, medium, and large-scale retail office service, low-impact manufacturing, and community uses. Uses that would impact the surrounding residential areas or generate significant volumes of traffic may be permitted with conditions. Single and multi-family dwellings will be permitted, but the single-family subdivision will not be permitted.
Where's Litchfield Drive again?
it's in this district.
I know, but where is it?
Yeah.
It's opposite from basement.
It's a little bit
I
past,
was looking at that. Can I go
Curve.
back?
Before we go to
Past
that,
Curve?
yeah.
I'm in
Okay,
the
wait,
town
Jason,
council.
pull your
I
seat.
didn't just
Right
say,
after
why
you.
are we specifying the lot size? I missed that meeting. We don't do it in any other district. Why are we specifying lot size?
Well, actually, in other parts of the comp plan, you do. So, this one, the other mixed-use district
This is
is
the one
saying
that's sold out.
very small lot size. and very
Litchfield Drive,
limited
okay,
conditions.
all right.
We've been talking about
Because this is-
scale or size is all the difference.
Yeah, but this is currently more like an R1 district, you know, a lot of residential, so it's 20 acres.
It's,
Some of it comes with
more
existing conditions to,
Yeah, existing lot sizes, kind of keeping it, not wanting that to end up being as crowded as the other downtown, more business oriented mixed use, is I think a more residential oriented mixed use.
just a little bit past that.
I think it's very, yeah.
I think that area that get varying lot size, R4, R3, and R1, I think that's why we did, it's just
Yeah,
like 1 acre.
it all comes together.
Because it's going to encompass a new zone, basically.
Yeah.
So along
We just haven't gotten to
Simone's line here, we go into great detail of that zone, we don't on the others.
Yeah.
We jump back and five.
Oh, we jumped back.
Simone again.
So why we go into great
All right,
detail
moving on.
identifying the
Sorry.
M5, but we
Sorry.
don't remember.
Why does the lot size in the town?
No, Simone just says,
Okay.
Why did you state it?
So, Donna, the other thing is, we go into great detail of saying where the M5 zone is, but we don't in the M1 or the M2. So we call it, depending on, we ought to keep the same level of detail across these zones, right?
Well, we do, well,
Oh,
that's
you mean like
a
the-
good question. I know why it's there for CCN. I don't know that we need to go into that level of detail, because the other ones are sort of self-limiting, so to speak.
That was part of my concern when I was just talking with Cal about it, because as you're coming up 111, at some point you're gonna go 1,000 feet off of Route 111, and you're gonna have frontage on the old Elfin Road that will allow that to be a commercial lot.
Yeah.
Because of the angle that it goes up to the city.
Well, So you have the same
Yeah,
thing, you
adjust-
get
adjust
up with the other one.
Yeah, you adjust it to
Right,
follow
you
the
get
lot
your-
lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to follow.
See, because that's another problem, is that the way the comp plan and the land use ordinance was originally written, they basically said, okay, straight line, there's a zone, there's a zone, and it cut people's houses in half. And what's been changing over the past several years is following lot lines, which makes a lot more sense. So people
Existing.
know. Yes,
So this
existing lot lines.
Route 1 was zoned like that, 1,000 feet
Right,
commercial on
yeah.
either side, and
And just cut properties, you know,
Sometimes
somebody
in the
wanted-
three different zones.
Somebody who wanted to expand the business.
There's
on Route
one which is in
because
Florida.
The back part of their lot, kind of like.
Is there really, John?
And that was,
I put together a database of each lot in Arundel and what zones the land fell into. There was one lot, and four zones.
Do you remember what area?
If I can dig it out, I've got it on my computer.
Four different zones.
Four different
we should have
zones.
declared that lot town center.
That is the nexus of Arundel.
There we go. Take it.
So to go back a little bit,
Yes,
because we're redefining the CCN or CCS, I think we need to go back and define those areas, right? Because if you're taking the CCS now and we're splitting it into
DB1 and
DB1
DB2.
and DB2, and we need to define what that area is.
That's Ed?
Well, he does. They are.
I already did it,
The
but
planning board
I
already
don't
did
know
it.
how to put it in anything less than a page or two in descriptions, because it follows lot lines in some places, and in other places it's 350 feet from the
I don't think that has to be defined in the comp plan.
No.
You'll have to define it in the ordinances. If the comp plan is just gonna tell you.
As shown on the map.
I was just gonna say, the map will define it.
That's exactly
so
right.
then
And
maybe
actually,
this
the,
M5
our-
needs to
Which
be
version
broader.
is that? The video 5 or the 09?
And that's my point, you're defining one area but not defining the
Right,
others.
so we need
What's
to
the
broaden-
reason?
Need to broaden the scope of.
So maybe this, we just broaden the scope of the CCN.
See,
Because the CCN is very definitive and the others aren't.
Right, but it just applies to the district.
The
But that's
M5
because that's the way it
designation
exists
applies
already.
to the northern end of Route 111, intended as mixed use.
Same thing with the M3.
well, the M3, I mean, didn't we do, we didn't put a definition.
So maybe some of the
No,
accidents.
it says it applies to the northern end of the Route 1.
Those noisy things in the middle,
Okay, well, I can give you a definition of the M3, which is going to be from the Bedford line to County Connection of Orange. I can do that in square footage, or
Well, the problem is, you can't just say the county connection.
Right,
because
it's-
You have to reference.
You can put the address, but if they change
So you're
their
being
name.
disinterested.
I will, but that is the actual boundary.
Yeah.
That really is the actual
Right,
boundary.
but what we're saying is the others are all very broad. It's just like if I turned around and went to town house, I understand it's the intersection of those roads, but it doesn't give me like so many feet off of that intersection.
Could we maybe do it as a, not to the last inch, but say, for example, with the Gateway District on the northern end of Route 1, from the Biddeford line southward, approximately 1,500 feet, or, you know, whatever that is, just to give us the reader a ballpark. And then.
Didn't we agree we were gonna go to the power lines?
See, Matt, no, we were just talking, well, no, not necessarily.
Well, we discussed that at the meeting, the last meeting I was at, was power lines were discussed.
Yeah.
Well, we can, but if they had agreed to it, I would have typed it in.
I don't think we agree.
We talked about a lot of
Let's
things.
set it in the minutes, you approve the minutes.
But see, like that one we're saying applies to the southern end of Route 1 corridor and is intended for mixed use. We would put M5 applies to the eastern end of Route 1 near the Biddeford line and is, you know, and is whatever, and then at that point you start with the description. You know,
Lots
it
fronting
says-
on Route 111 on the eastern.
Yeah, when you look at the current comp plan, the only zone that has dimensions is a CCN. And that was the intent to,
Well, it's because there's a radical change between CCN and then all of a sudden you're into R4. Now, you know, when you're on Route 1, there's not a radical change in lot sizes, the uses, So that's why it was not defined as much as it was, as I recollect the discussion.
Right. Plus CCN also encompasses, on the northern side of 111, you've got the trailer parks. And then as you go south, you get into the New Road area, which is then entirely, it's entirely residential. So CCN is surrounded by two drastically different districts and another town. So that was part of the reason for the detail. That it was a matter of, where does it make the transition from mixed use to that rural conservation?
And I think the plan, we wanted to define that as opposed to Route 1, but we did it for the planning board to pick and choose where the ability for zoning actually zones were ultimately defined, so.
And, well, the other reason for this was that this was a change
It was
from the
amended.
comp
Oh, yeah.
plan when Dewston insisted that that one section be changed.
Right.
So it ended up with an odd shape. Because what was a rural, an agricultural situation suddenly became a business situation. So we had to kind of say, okay, jigsaw puzzle time, and put this piece in. So we would just follow the roads and measure distances.
In other words, there was a reason for it.
Yeah. And it took us,
So I mean, just, it out to me.
It took us many, many meetings.
There was a petition to amend
Yeah.
Compton land use regulations, and that's why it's so detailed.
All right, so maybe in the M1 and the M1, and, well, maybe just the M1, because M2 is really this way, the same, it just goes out. So maybe we've thrown a little bit more closer to what's in the CCS. We add, because the CCS kind of gives you a, I thought I read somewhere, there was somewhere else that I read a zone where it gave you a bunch of roads, but that was one of the, like, outlines.
That's not true. So what? Better than nothing here.
No, I was looking at the existing comp plan today, and how it defines all of the different zones, but. Okay.
Okay. In that, that's something we can revisit if we need to.
Revisit M5. It's got that, we're just looking at the map, 1,000 people makes sense. Because there's open space there, there's two little residential lots, so that'll have to be carved out around the lot line. Yeah.
All right, so basically for that first paragraph with the description, that just needs a general rewrite. So if we said,
GM5 designation applies, period.
yeah, that's good. Eastern end of Route 111 from the Bedford City line for a distance, well,
You just say to the CMP.
to the CMP lines,
Yeah.
yep, that's good.
To the CMP transmission.
Utility fund.
Let's keep them in the residential district.
And then we can get rid of all of the rest of that.
Well,
And
there's
that leaves latitude for the planning board to do just like we did all, they're doing all the others.
I was talking to Tad, this is, if you want it up to, but not including the CMP line?
Well, I would make all those trailers that are underneath the CMP lines over on Dave Mills.
Bruce Mills.
Bruce Mills side. Why don't I keep saying Dave Mills? Sorry.
As she would.
In a business zone.
Eventually phasing them out.
CMP's basically.
Well, it says
The
that
three-phase
in our uses, it's single and multi-family will be permitted, but no new single-family subdivisions will be allowed, so you've got.
No different than the single-family homes on Route 1.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter because they're existing non-conforming uses anyways. The fact is, they're easements that are being
That's what he's getting at.
So let's not worry about that.
We are, I assume, we are including the utility corridor in its entirety in this.
That's what Diane was.
Right.
Okay, so if we said to the western edge of the utility corridor,
That has no effect on working on Chestertown whatsoever.
Actually, it improves it.
No, and that's what I was asking, I said, okay, when you go to the utility, I said, do you want to stop at the utility, or do you want it to include the utility?
I think it should improve.
well, that makes sense.
Yes.
So should include utilities in the uses?
Yes, there are.
Wait a minute, let me look at the table.
Actually, we haven't written this district yet. I mean, this is an unwritten district. Planning board has not addressed this. They haven't given a fancy new name or anything like that. So
Well, basically,
the world is.
we're sort of
is
tweaking this a little bit for them. Okay, M5 district should allow for a mix of small, medium, and large-scale retail office service, low-impact manufacturing community uses that would impact the surrounding residential areas or generate significant volumes of traffic may be permitted with conditions. Single and multi-family dwellings would be permitted, but with single-family subdivisions will be excluded to be consistent with our language. New construction shall be designed to reflect the character of the surrounding residential neighborhoods with significant reduction in lot sizes, lot frontages, and setbacks. A pedestrian-oriented approach to development will be applied where feasible. Site conditions and distance from the arterial will determine the maximum density and type of development. Did we include the infrastructure statement?
Sure. Right up in Andrews Road.
So site conditions and infrastructure. Site, all right,
It's not
site,
at Andrew Road yet.
site conditions, comma, infrastructure, and distance from or to arterial.
What we would do, I mean, what you do in a situation like that is you could reduce the lot size with sewer and water. And that's usually how you do it in zoning lots. 1 acre or half acre, you know, it's sewer and water, or maybe you want a half acre lot.
Jumps to my mind is reflect the character of surrounding residential neighborhoods. And what about the intersection of, in my mind, on that new road, Alfred Road, residential neighborhood that jumps into my mind with the pines and is, what,
But you can't,
somebody can argue it's a surround, oh, no new single family subdivision, okay.
Right.
Okay,
and you can't see.
that's all I can think of.
No,
I want to reflect the character.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no,
But you can't
at the
see the
last
front
meeting,
anyway.
what you missed was we decided that somebody was gonna put in a warehouse, it just had to look like a mobile home.
One big mobile
Right.
home.
It'll have jobs in it.
Is that what the Chip Road's doing on the waterfront?
That's right. That's going
Yeah,
over here.
that's what I was gonna say, that's right, yeah.
There you go. That was
It's
supposed
the
to be.
Google
said.
mobile
Once
home.
I just, we're just gonna weld
I
together
know,
a
but
few
that's
mobile
made the
homes
paper
up
like
there,
almost
you know.
every single day with people trying to guess.
What's interesting is there's a sister one being built in San Francisco.
There's two of them in San Francisco.
It's for Google.
It's for Google.
Well, that's the new latest speculation.
That's the latest thing.
That's the most
Google's for the officers.
Well, it's going to pull their databases because they can chill those with a bunch of water.
That's right.
It's Google C.
Right.
I thought it was Google NSA.
Seawater?
They said if you take the numbers on the barges that company owns, it's binary code for 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is one of the reasons they tied it in with Google.
That would be a good way to
Some people just have too much time on
They
it.
do.
Very cool. So we're done?
Well, we're not done with the, I'm gonna propose we just take our agenda and recycle it for the next meeting, and keep going. There's no point in doing
Yep,
it.
because,
We just got through old
might
business.
take us till next week.
All right, we should probably, we have maybe a tentative date for a meeting with the planning board, but I think now we need to set a date for our next meeting. So, today is the, If we stick with Tuesdays, and we were doing the first Tuesday, but that's out.
First Tuesday would be the 5th.
That's voting, that's out.
Second Tuesday's out because it's allowed.
Okay.
So you get the 19th,
And that's out for me.
and you get the 26th.
That's,
Right before
fresh
Thanksgiving,
balance.
right?
The Tuesday is from Thanksgiving.
Just give up on December and November.
Unless you do the first,
The first what?
which is next week. The first Tuesday is next week.
Yeah, that's voting day.
I know we're doing the 6th.
Already voted, he's all
We
set.
thought you already were at
I was going to the answer on that one.
So now we're into December
December
2nd.
Well,
Well, wait, Tuesday the 4th.
That's Monday. Are you in December?
I'm in November.
No,
Oh, in 2014, I'm sorry. Because Tad kept referencing
Oh,
what
no,
the date
we
was
don't.
going to be,
We
so I
might
was
be
looking
here
up
in
what town
2014.
meeting was going to be. Sorry about that.
well, I think probably November 4th, 2014 will still be at this. I can keep that date
Let's
open.
schedule that one down.
So, then.
Okay, I gotta go get the kid.
Is the 26th a reasonable date, or do any of you try to have a light?
For slugging it out.
Oh, Melanie reprieved me, she took him for a day.
Oh, that's nice.
Tuesday before
Because Cole's
Thanksgiving.
work, the only day off is on his Thursday.
I don't know, but I think
God bless Norton. God bless Norton.
It is.
Well, he was gonna come.
Really?
And she called me at the last minute, so.
Looking at the Tuesday?
Yeah, we meet tonight. I go,
They
"Okay,
focus, they
Going
focus.
once.
All right,
And I go,
26th
yeah, she
is,
goes, bring him here.
unless somebody has a better idea, and hopefully by then we will have met with the planning board. So we will,
And we
we
will
go
have
back to
better
square
idea.
one and
So I
start
asked him,
again.
I'm gonna go there, come here, and he's like, "Oh, Melanie."
Bingo.
We had so much fun last time.
Actually, you were.
You would, the 18th is the Monday.
I got November 26th is the next meeting, so I guess my proposal to have something ready for election is out the window.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
You were talking about this year's election.
Yeah, I was talking about next Tuesday, I'm having a survey done in time for Don.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I can push that.
You're gonna whip that up?
Before the,
I actually almost got it all done today. Didn't plan to survey for that.
7 o'clock, right?
I don't have a taker, she's not nibbling at the hook at all.
Wait, did we motion to adjourn? Because I don't want your nibbling on the hook on the video.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Oh, come on.